That's the NDC requesting some answers from the Council of State on how come they washed on as the president appointed Dr. Apiahene, a clearly partisan person who had played significant roles in the MPP and was well known as a communicator for the MPP in the Bono area. What do you think of the Council of State's response?
Oh, I think that the Council of State is merely going by the requirements of the Constitution. In that sense, they have not done any wrong. If there's any wrong, it flows from the, how will I call it, the many illusions and
Ghana's gold,
false assumptions
gold,
that many people have, particularly in the NDC, about the nature of politics. I mean, I hear people often talk about neutral persons, and I wonder what they are talking about. Because on practically any material issue, you find a divide on the basis of interest. You don't have to look far to recognize this. But more importantly,
Ghana's gold,
in our
Radio
president, we have someone who has set out very deliberately to pack all state institutions with partisans from the NPP. You can start with the appointment of the engineering of the expulsion of, or is it the removal of the last electoral commissioner, Charlotte Osei, right? Something that was cooked, superintended, and executed
Ghana's gold,
from the seat
Radio gold,
of our president. That was when he started packing the electoral commission. He's packing the courts, high courts, court of appeal, Supreme Court, all of them MPP loyalists. Now, for the NDC and all others in opposition, we basically have to adopt Professor Azuma Nelson's philosophy. They go into the ring with their own referee. Period. But the notion that there are people who are neutral is false. People will always be deceived if they follow that illusion.
Let me first go back to where you say the Council of State was following the Constitution. Now, you're looking for someone who fills the role of a commissioner on what is supposed to be an independent constitutional body. I understand where you say that there are no neutrals, but at least the least you expect of a referee is that he has not done the jersey of the other team and was just maybe the person was just substituted out of the game.
Yes,
Then the next moment the person is wearing the jersey of a referee. That's the
Well, and
least you expect. That the
I mean,
referee, that's not a referee.
if you had to use that standard, then you could not possibly appoint anybody to any public office. Because at some point in their lives, you may find that they have been part of something that you would call or classify partisan. I don't know how far back you want to go in the person's adult life or conscious life. Of course. But then the point is this. I will move the focus from the appointee to the appointer. And his intent and his designs and his agenda. Right? Ghanaians have been conned into electing a despot. He wants to ensure that he monopolizes power, that his clan and his faction do that into the future. To that end, he has set out to populate all public institutions with persons who he believes would follow that agenda when he appoints them to office. And that's what he has done. And once the rest of us have a duty to remove our heads from the sun and to recognize the reality. All politics is about interest. Perhaps, if you're talking about material things, the only people who don't have any interest are the dead, because they are gone. But if you're on this side of life, you have material interest. It can be very simply demonstrated. I can take the example of, say, housing to demonstrate what I'm talking about. Most are tenants, right? A few may be owner-occupiers who can pretend that they are in the middle on the matter of whether rent should be raised so that landlords are kept happy, or rent should be lowered so that tenants are happy. Then you have a few landlords but you see that in practically every material issue, these interests are what shape and determine our politics. And it is not just a Ghanaian phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. It's about all class society, such as we have in Ghana. And if you want to be in politics, you must start from a recognition of this basic fact, so that we are not acting on the basis of illusions and false hopes.
Then I understand the point you are making about the person who is supposed to appoint.
Yeah.
But I also think the Council of State was supposed to offer some value. You are saying that because if it was merely about checking and studying CV, you perhaps know better than me that perhaps the Public Services Commission does a better job at that. So, what value does the Council of State offer us if all it does is to pick a piece of document and study it?
Now, let me go over it again, sir. I'm saying that it is not the Council of State that is at fault, or the individual persons who make it up. What is our fault is the illusion, the assumption that there are people who are involved in the policy space who are neutral, who have no interest. I'm saying that is false.
And that includes members of the Council of State?
That includes the law. The law exists to preserve a certain political order. So that, for instance, if you go back a couple of 100 years, it was legal to own another human being. Right? It was legal to own another human being. And in some places, you could put that human being to death and you would have committed no crime. So it's your property. Today, it is legal that people go into a workplace. They work cooperatively, but all the surplus that is generated is appropriated by one party. And it is going to be repeated in many factories and workplaces in our country today and across the world.
Ghana's gold. Radio gold.
I'm sure you are not a stranger to the statement that, quote unquote, we are a democracy. Are we not?
Yes. We are supposed to
now
be.
Go to any workplace. There's no democracy there. The owner hires people in order to exploit them for their surplus. The minute they can no longer generate the surplus, he fires them. The value that has been created by the cooperation of the workers. But somebody else takes the surplus. He may not even be present. He can appoint managers to work on his behalf, to do the supervision. If you really had a democracy, you would have a democracy in every workplace. We don't have it. That is an illusion. And if I may even venture into another field, it's relevant because it's the topic of the moment. A few days ago, you had the collective leadership of ECOWAS, threatening to invade Niger to guarantee and fortify the interests of France and the U.S.
I love Radio Gold 90.5.
And plunge the sub-region into chaos. And you ask yourself, what were they smoking? Or what were they sniffing?
Ghana's gold. Radio gold.
Absolute madness. That the leaders of ECOWAS will sit down and threaten to invade a neighbor, Niger, so that they can guarantee chaos, violence and confusion for the next several generations. But why? They routinely act in the interest of others, not us. And we tolerate it. Well, I put it simply. In all that I say, I seek to move away from the illusions that I find people trapped in, on which basis they have false hopes about outcomes, that we understand what it is.
Your advice when you started was that the NDC should go into an election or the election with their own referee.
Yes.
What does that mean?
You see, I saw a bit of that in their mobilization for the Asin North by-election. And I'm making a point that I have made often, that the NDC long ago abandoned its constituency. For the working people, the marginalized, the rural and urban poor, who make up the vast majority of this country. If they were spending their energies in understanding this essence, one, and two, working in the interest of this constituency, in mobilizing them, they will not be struggling to win elections with 0.3% and at best 1% and stuff like that. But over the course of its life, although the NDC has not changed its name, it has spent its time trying to model itself as a poor copy of the NPP. And those who build the NPP for what they call they had a name for it, property-only democracy, remember?
Yeah, they still say it.
Yes. They are very clear about their interests, where they stand. Property-owning democracy is for a few. So, well, the NDC is welcome to follow them and model them, but they will never have the support of the property-owning minority who control our lives, whether they are in power or they are not, under the current arrangement. Whether the NPP is in power or not, it controls the bench. It controls the bar. It owns the media. Most of the top echelons of the security forces, the public services, universities, all have an affinity for the MPP. And it will remain so for the next 1,000 years. It's not going to change.
Well, while you have I think even in this election, you refer to the president as a despot. The Africa Bar Association, at its 23rd annual conference in Pretoria, South Africa, conferred a Medal of Merit in Leadership award on him. In fact, they describe him as a Pan-Africanist, anti-corruption crusader, a rare democratic leader in the field of good governance, a true African statesman whose legacies present African leaders must emulate, and we are minded to say that his legacy will stand the test of time.
You know the person who drafted that rubbish?
No, it's not. It's what was on the. It's a citation under what are presented by Africa Bar Association.
Precisely. I'm saying that you know the person who engineered that citation.
What I see, the African Bar Association.
They are the leaders of the Ghana Bar Association.
90.5.
Which is another contingent of the MPP. Check. They leak some of the key leaders of the African Bar. In fact, I think their recent conference or whatever it was held in Ghana, was it not?
No, actually, this one was held in Pretoria.
Pretoria. How long ago is this?
I think this was over the weekend, I believe.
Very well. But I stand to correction. But you find out that the leaders of the Ghana Bar Association are highly placed in the African Bar Association. This was merely foisted on the African Bar Association. But it's in the same vein as our president chasing after awards and laurels. That has been part of his agenda.
So you disagree with the fact that he's a Pan-Africanist, anti-corruption crusader, and a rare democratic leader?
So now why do you want to mock the Ghanaian people this morning? My brother, are you no mocking us this morning?
I'm not mocking you. I'm actually reading. This is from the Chronicle newspaper.
That is a bunch of fools.
But look, that's not fair.
Come again?
That's not fair. They hold a different opinion from you.
I hold an opinion about them. I said this is a bunch of fools. Based on the evidence, based on the facts. How can anybody draw this conclusion? Either that person is stark ignorant or wants to provoke the Ghanaian people this morning. Not just the Ghanaian people, the African people here in the diaspora.
Doc, thank you very much for your time.
I was just going to ask a small bit, that to his credit.
Okay.
In all the effusions of foolishness about intervening in Niger, following his faux pas in relation to the Wagner people in Burkina, I have not heard a president, one way or the other, raise his voice. Have a good day, my brother.
Doc, thank you. Dr. David Pessey is a student of history and politics joining us this morning. And of course, he